everybody, and welcome to Steve and Friends. My name is Steve. No. It's Sloane. And today I am taking over so that we can meet the Dixons. Yes, that's right. Today I am turning the tables and we have the opportunity to meet our incredible state leaders, Steve and Joyce Dixon. So without further ado, Steve and Joyce, hello. How are you doing?
Well, hello, Mr.
Hello.
Sloane.
Yeah.
Very good to see you on the other side of this. Let's see how you can control these two people.
I'll tell you what, I'm excited, and I'm not trying to control anything. We're going to let this thing roll, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get right to the point. I know for most of us, we've known you kind of more recently, can I say? And I'd like to know what your childhoods were like, where you grew, what it was like for you as kids, and maybe even if there's a story that kind of encapsulates that or describes your childhoods best.
Oh, me. Okay. Sorry. Hello, everyone.
Anyone.
Jeez. This is very scary. Me, well, home was not great when I was little. My mum passed away when I was 4, and my dad worked long hours. So I was very much left on my own with my 2 brothers, who were pain in the backside. Sorry, pain in the neck. They just didn't want this little sister, following around, pesky little person kind of thing. So I was very much on my own. So it wasn't fun being home. But school was everything. I just loved it because I was able to run around. I was good in sports. I enjoyed school thoroughly. So that was my kind of upbringing, and sounded weird. I would be in school, early in the morning and till late at night. And I would play every sport going because I just want to be in school. And then go home just to eat and sleep. And then next day. And weekends, I even go to school and play games. And that was my school life and my home life. And I was a happy girl, simply because I was able to do my favorite thing, sports.
That's very cool. And where were you? Where did you grow up? What country? Or
In Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Right.
Yeah, a very good school. And I was, because I was good in sports, I was trusted with equipment. And, in Malaysia, most kids have no money to buy, tennis rackets and things like that. And I was very popular because I had the key to the PE room. So we had so much fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Steve, what about yourself?
So, born and bred in Manchester, England. The common thread we both have is sport, because I spent all my childhood playing sport as well, football and cricket. I loved sport. I loved football to the max, but I was actually better at cricket. I could have been a pro cricketer and never quite made it in football, but loved it. But probably the most defining moment of childhood, with Joyce, obviously, Mum passing away at the age of 4 is a big deal, and with me was probably my dad leaving and parents getting divorced when I was a kid. So that was quite a marked, event in my life. Yeah.
Wow. So 2 incredible sportsmen. I feel privileged.
Well, hey, what can we say?
Wonderful. So from Kuala Lumpur, Asia, and from Manchester, England, Europe, how did you 2 end up together? How did that happen?
Well, Steve pursued me.
Oh,
But I can't live without you.
There we go.
You had the keys. Is that right?
So we actually met in a church in England. And the funny thing was, the only kind of proper girlfriend I had ever had before was the one who introduced me to Joyce. And I thought, hello, I thought.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Completely the wrong timing to meet one another. Because both in the UK, but I was committed to move to Spain. Joyce was very soon moving overseas as well. She'd come to the end of her time in the UK study and work. So it was kind of completely the wrong time, but completely the right person. But we did it crazy, didn't we? We were so spiritual. Joyce flew to Zimbabwe. I flew to Spain while we were both thinking this is the one. And wrote letters. You remember those things? You probably don't even know what they are. It's on a paper with a pen that you write. Wrote nearly every day from Spain to Zimbabwe. Had no money, couldn't even afford a phone call, and we kind of lived that crazy. It's a miracle that we got married, but it was the right thing. I turned up with an engagement ring in my pocket flew to Zimbabwe. Had no money to stay in Zimbabwe, just enough money to buy the ring and pay an airline ticket, and got engaged in Zim.
Yeah. Wow. Joyce, can you tell us from your perspective, what was that like? Was Steve a bit of a romantic? Like, what was he doing? How did he win you over?
He was romantic, yes. He would sing to me. Can you believe that?
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
And he could sing. Not now, but he could sing. And we were just a bit too spiritual back then. So, which was like, do the right thing. But it was good, though, in that sense that we both had a promise to individually to God, and we put that first, and I don't regret it at all.
No, we definitely put God first in those, in our early 20s, early mid-20s. We never had an issue with putting God first, even if it cost us.
Yeah, right.
When I got saved, that was the one thing I said to, just a prayer. Says, I want to do something on my own.
Yeah. Before
I got married, not because of my husband, so I'm doing this. But because I, Joyce, did something because I heard you, God. Wow. And that was what it was. Going to Zimbabwe to be part-time missionary was a lot of fun. Very
That's
scary.
Incredible.
Step of faith is scary.
Right. So you guys get engaged, but still living like worlds apart.
Right. Yeah.
What was that like? I guess engaged life and then into early married life. Were you guys on the same continent when you got married? How did that work out?
So flew from Spain to Zimbabwe to get engaged. Was it 6 months later, I think?
6 months
we
later.
both flew to England, got married. 2 weeks later, we were back in Spain together. It's a long story, which we won't go into because she was actually extradited for a few days. But that's a whole other program in itself.
Being naughty.
But anyway, we end up in Spain together. I'd already spent a year there, learned the language. And there we were. It was a very, very trying time, the first year or two, because again, it was a new language, new culture for Joyce. I'd only been there kind of a year and a half myself. So that had all of its challenges. Big picture, it was absolutely fantastic because we did amazing stuff, but probably the personal side of it was the toughest, hey?
Yeah.
Like, tell me about that for the first few
I think
months.
our first protocol was in this little town called Murcia. In the south of Spain, and it was like one of those spaghetti junction kind of town. There's just one road, one church, and they've never seen even foreigners like from Madrid.
Right.
You know the foreigners by the car number plates, and so in walked this Asian girl, and he was very blonde then. It's like they would stare at me till I disappear into the horizon. And I used to get I thought, I must be really ugly, or I've got egg on my face constantly, or there's something about me. Why do they keep looking at me this way? And I learned a bit of Spanish then, very little, just daily trying. Steve was the one teaching me. It was amazing that we did not kill each other, but there you go. That's another story.
She threw the book at me once or twice.
And
it hurt.
So simple things I was able to say. And like one time I went down to the market and I would say, pointing at the vegetable, dos, which is, you can tell in it too, 2 kilos. And it will look at me and go, It just, to me, I learned then, it's made up in the mind of a person. I'm not going to understand you. And it's just no matter what you say or do. And that hurt. And so I shrunk. And I kind of felt I'm useless in this country. Why am I here, God? Why did you bring me if, people are not going to understand me? So we had a lot of difficulty and we just got married. So it took us about quite a lot of months off. I cried a lot.
She used to cry before going down to the market, cry before shopping. It was an awful situation. This was our first year of marriage. We nearly didn't make it, to be honest. I think it got to the stage where I was looking at it and kind of working at, the will of God type of a vibe and thinking, you know what, this is great doing what we're doing and planning a church. But if it's going to ruin our lives, at least at this time, then I'd be willing to kind of go back. And we talked about that as a very real option.
Right.
just thinking that, one way we could serve God anywhere. We could do life anywhere and we'd be all right. But I just had this thing about Spain, but more than happy to kind of lay it down in that sense.
Wow.
And it was after that stage, and I admire Joyce for doing this, of thinking it through, really praying it through, and then saying, no, we won't go back. We'll do this. And I've got to tell you, we were there for 10 years, and the one who didn't want to leave Spain, this one. Because once she'd been there, fell in love with the people, had the language, she found it hard to leave people that you've done so much with, So we turned it round. God was good to us, and she was brilliant.
Wow, that's so incredible. Well, we love you, Joyce, so glad you stuck it out. But I guess the next thing, you have 2 kids, incredible kids, Johnny and Leanne. At what point did they come into the picture, and what was that like, managing ministry and living overseas and just doing life, a big life, with kids in tow?
I think so. The point change for me was when Steve then decided, like he said, okay, we can go. We'll leave. We'll go home. This is not worth it. And it was like God dropped into my heart that, is this what you want? Really was confronting and challenging. Wow. And I felt that it was like a personal kind of, you can have your way. Or, you know what? I'll bless you if you just be honest with yourself of what this is feeling. So, and I just felt that it was very much, I need to put roots down back then. And the minute I decided I will put my roots down, it's like this thing just lifted. Mm-hmm. And then, and I decided, okay, we'll bring kids up here. And that's what it was just one decision. And the minute I decided, and God lifted it, it's incredible. And then, Johnny was born a year later on in Murcia in Spain, and Leanne was born in Manchester 3 years later.
But during our time in Spain.
During our time in Spain. Right. And so they grew up in Spain. Johnny spoke 2 languages. He could understand and speak it as a kid. That was what happened. It was good, very good, because Spanish people love children. They were spoiled.
Yeah.
We worked with drug addicts at one point, and honestly, they absolutely adored children. I learned so much from them, how they love children. Eating and everything, it's all inclusive. Everything was children is included. Children was important, and I was glad.
Well, Leanne was born in England during the years in Spain. She's complained about that ever since, and she's in her 30s now. Why did he get to be born in an exotic country and I get born in Manchester, England? What went wrong there? And so we paid the price for that for a long time. But those Spain years, I'm not sure you can ever say the best years are these or the best years of that, but we thoroughly enjoyed all of our seasons. And that one taught us so much, to both be in another language, to both be in another culture than our own, to bring up our kids in another culture, start churches from zero. We'd never done that. Yeah. To work with heroin addicts, we'd never done that. We had people in our home that you'd never believe that other people wouldn't touch. We just learned and did those things without really, kind of deciding. You just did them. Well, I reckon it was a great ministry school. It was a great life school, learning to do life. So we learned a massive amount in those years of Spain. Spain will always be important to us for the rest of our lives. We absolutely love it over there. It's a great country, great people.
Well, I love that you mentioned having people around your table, because if there's one thing I know about both of you is that you're incredible hosts, and not just on a platform or when it comes to those things, but specifically around your table. And so I guess, you've already mentioned a bit of it, but where did that love of hospitality and love for people, having them around your table, where do you think that comes from for the two of you?
Joyce needs to answer that, because my only answer to that is Joyce. That's where it came from.
Right. Tell us.
From marriage forward, and that's what's there. So, yeah.
Well, Asian culture is very much about eating together.
Right.
So that was where it started for me, eating together. And then when I was in Africa, the family I lived with was the same. English couple, priority about being together at the table. And there should be no distractions. It's where you get to know, it's like communion. You get to have communion, union with one another. You get to know each other. And then when I got married, Steve was saying that we had people around. Steve's heart was that everybody's welcome. And mine was the practicality was like most of the time in shock because the people he brought home was like last minute call. There'll be 10 people, this 5 people. And I had to learn that I have to open my table, not just about my family and my kids, but it's everybody else that, are without. And it was something I learned. I didn't kind of think I did it well, but because of our calling as well, our love for God, and I have seen how God has blessed and food just seemed to be going. I don't know. It just seemed to be available all the time.
I don't know if she did it, but I mean, I used to turn up with guys off the street and we'd feed them. We had people actually live with us, even when we had kids who had AIDS, tested positive, and we did all the right things, medically and all that sort of stuff. But we just thought we've got to be the ones who take a lead in loving people. And our church, the first church we planted was fantastic because it was full of professionals and prostitutes. It was full of guys off the streets. It was full of broken lives. It was full of all sorts of, interesting people. But Joyce just had this ability to, instead of complain at me, I mean, she might have smashed me in the arm but at the end of the night, but whenever I would turn up with people and help her, she would always find a way of feeding people. So the food is one thing, but the thing I think we learned in those years, it's never about the food, it's always about people. And so she's a brilliant mum. So in terms of looking after, the kids, looking after the family, the food was always great. It was always healthy. Around the table was always really important for us. And I guess we just extended our family to include other people quite a few times in the week. But we would, make them fit in with our kids. So it was kids' time around the table. It wasn't me talking to some bloke about his issues. But once the kids have gone to bed and all the rest of it, then we kick in with conversations. And we just kind of made it work. We didn't really have a book to learn from. We just kind of did it. But the table, food, hospitality, I think it started with Joyce, and we just kind of went down that road, and we started churches through it. We've pastored people, we've sorted marriages out, we've done a million things around the table. That's why it's always been important to us.
I think one of the things is that when you are generous and open your home, you never do it on your own. People always bring stuff. They always add. And we always have a lot more than we started. And also those days, our church were full of nurses. They were single, students, and they were missing home terribly. And I found that as you open your home to them, they in turn became our children, our friends for life. So you earn, you gain.
Wow. That's so good. Speaking of Joyce's cooking, I know you mentioned it in there, but Steve, what would be your favorite Joycey dish?
It's usually the last one because they're all fantastic. So here's the great thing: Chinese Malaysian who cooked great Spanish food, and the reason is there was an older neighbour on our level in the block of apartments with her, and Joyce would be often in there just watching what she does, learning, and became a great Spanish cook. As for a Chinese Malaysian that was been living in England and Zimbabwe, worked that out. And so she's always kind of learned and reads cookbooks and then makes her own spin on these things. So I think whatever she comes up with is usually very creative. Another thing about Joyce with food is when people are coming over, she doesn't do the safe dishes. She does things for the first time when people are coming over. I mean, that's crazy, but it's just she gets the enjoyment out of trying stuff and exploring food, I guess. So the last one and everyone.
Love it. Great answer. Joycey, what's your favorite dish to cook at the moment?
Favorite dish to cook is dishes I've never done. Push myself, and if it doesn't turn out right, they don't know and I don't know that it's how it should be. That's my favorite way of cooking.
That's it. And as someone who's tasted your food, it's marvelous every single time. So keep going.
It's an anointing. It's true.
That's it. I guess finally, what would you say to encourage, people who maybe, I'm just, I'm not that great at cooking. I'm just not sure about having people in my house. What would your encouragement be to, for our church to move forward What would you encourage me to?
I would say it's all about people. So think less about yourself and your own adequacies or inadequacies. Just love on people. So make sure your home is an open home. Make sure your table's an inviting table, all that sort of stuff. And not worry because if you're not a great cook, get a takeaway in, for goodness sake. But just hang out with people and converse and chat and get to know people and make it about, people and relationships. That's what I'd say.
I say don't let food or dishes to rob you of the opportunity you'll get in knowing people at the table, because allowing that to stop you to not invite or open your home is a robbery to you, not anybody else. Because nobody's there. We all, when people come, they're hungry. Anything they tasted is like wonderful, but you're soon forgotten about the dishes because it's the people around the table that makes the party wonderful.
So good. Thank you very much. I think if I can ask one final question, I know that in this season things have been a bit crazy, but what would your dream be for the church in Queensland and Northern Territory during this season?
Well, I think for this season, it's to get through this season healthily in every single way, physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally. But beyond the season, I think we've got to look beyond. So it's not a survival mode we need. It's like, how do we flourish in life, whatever life throws at us? And this is a crazy year. Hey, 2020, we'll never forget this one. But I think to flourish in life, flourish in church, flourish in marriage, relationships, it's always the right time to do those things better. So if we gave ourselves to enjoying one another, enjoying our kids, enjoying our marriages, enjoying our food, enjoying our friends, our relationships, enjoying church, we're probably doing the right thing. And we'll definitely get through this thing one day. Let's make sure we get there healthy and all the better for this season.
I would say fight against insular.
Right.
Fight again. In this season, a lot of people's getting, isolation and being insular in themselves. Fight against it. That's it.
Wonderful. Well, can I just say on behalf of a whole lot of people that we love you guys so much. And it's been so good getting to know you a little bit more. I feel like this could be a 20-part series. Just every nation you've been to.
Just because we're old, mate. Just we're old.
No. It's because you've lived an incredible life. But yeah, thank you so much for being the pastors that you are and for always loving people. I think that's what's come through today and comes through all the time, every conversation with you both. And thanks for giving me the keys to this thing. It's been wonderful.
Thanks, mate. You're awesome. Absolutely awesome.
We love you guys.
Thank you, everyone.